there's times when you're like telling yourself, God, I don't know if I can do it, but you push through anyways, right? And so we kind of call it orchestrating stress. We're like purposely orchestrating stress. So like in this kind of controlled environment, so you can overcome it and like, okay, you adapt to that. Then you can step into a little more stress, and you kind of linearly progress. And you can look at it like with weights, say I started my back squat at 95 pounds, and then the next time my muscles adapt, I can do 105 pounds, and then that's stressful, and then my muscles adapt. Well, that translates to like life confidence too, right? Because when I was first getting sober, everything was overwhelming, right? If I had to send an email, like it was, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then like I had to talk to my mom, and I had to apply for a job, and like all this stuff, to where like the gym kind of helped with that. So where it's like, I can do this, right? And then I can step into a little bit more, because at first, like you're saying, the bare minimum is just being sober. It's just not picking up heroin. But after like, however long it is, like a month, 2 months, 3 months, like, okay, like now that's not enough. Like now what are we going to do? Now we're going to get a job. Now we're going to go back to school, whatever it might be, right? Now we're going to kind of repair the relationships with family, loved ones, friends. And so it just keeps like adding more and more and more until like, you can kind of adapt to it, and then you can kind of handle a little bit more of, whatever your path is or whatever life has to throw at you. But that's like that personal development and that confidence is huge, and it's kind of a never-ending journey. Right. Like there's never a time when you're done,
Right.
Even if you look at it like with money or something, I don't really think there's a moment where you're like, okay, I'm done and I can like retire at 40 or something. And then it's like, well, what are you going to do with your time? Like you're going to become discontent sooner or later. You need to find a new hobby, passion, something, mountain to climb. Like whatever it is that kind of keeps your engine running, whatever it is that keeps you going.
Yeah, I love that self-inflicted adversity, man.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. And I found that if I don't do it myself, the universe is going to do it for me. And when I can have a program or a habit or something like that where I'm inflicting it on myself, what did you call it?
Orchestrating stress.
Orchestrating stress.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I orchestrate my own stress, then as those things come up like you were talking about, the email, the job interview, the traffic, the food decision, those things become more under my control because I've already dealt with the hardest thing of my day.
Right.
Like the hardest thing I'm going to do today is already done. And so I have a little bit of control over my emotion when it comes to unexpected shit, right? It just helps us be better people in general because the adversity is going to come. Just like when we were on the streets, we never fucking knew what was going to happen, but we always knew what was going to happen. We always knew some bullshit was going to happen.
Right.
And there was some conditioning that went involved with that, as far as getting used to that street mentality and that drug lifestyle. The first time that I ever saw a gun get pulled, it was stressful.
Yeah.
But by like the fifth time, it wasn't as stressful.
Right, exactly.
It wasn't as bad anymore. But then getting sober, the first time I tried to get sober, it was tough. But by the last time I failed at getting sober, I was used to it.
Yeah.
And so by the last time when I finally was ready to finally get sober, like you were talking about, like making that decision, it was tough again.
Yeah.
It was hard. And by it being hard, it constantly puts that reminder in the back of my mind that if I ever make the decision to start over again, it's going to be even fucking harder, and I may not make it back.
Yeah.
So what am I willing to do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Exactly.
Right? What am I willing to do on a daily basis? And that's where it comes from. Like, it's always daily, right?
I don't think you can get complacent, because it's never... I don't know. I always try to tell myself, like, no matter how much progress I make, like, it's one wrong decision away from being back to where I was. And it might not happen immediately. It's like, if I fall off on something, whatever it is, whether it's the gym or my nutrition or the program, I sponsor people in the AA program, like outside of my work at SOAR. And if I stop doing something like that, it's not like the next day I'm going to have a needle in my arm, but it's like I'm going to start getting more irritable and I'm going to start getting pissed and like, something's not right and I'm not happy. And then like if I keep making a series of incorrect choices, who knows, a month later, 3 months later, 6 months later, I'm going to end up, where I was, shooting heroin again.
Yeah, where it doesn't seem like that bad of an idea.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you feel like in that instance that fear is a motivator?
I mean, it could be a motivator. I don't really look at it as like fear. There's this, line that you're probably familiar with in AA. It's like, we don't want to regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. So it's like, I'm not filled with like shame or regret about my past. I've come to terms with it now. I've cleaned it up. But I'm not going to try to completely forget it either.
Right.
I want to constantly remind myself just as like, motivation to not go back there. And I don't think it's as much fear anymore. I don't really know, I guess, what it is. I guess motivation would be the right word. Mm-hmm. It's like I have a purpose in my life now. I'm working at SOAR. I'm helping other addicts and alcoholics. I have a family now. I have a daughter. So it's like because of all these reasons, like I got to keep pushing forward and putting pressure on this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
I have much more to lose now at this stage of the game than I did then.
Right.
And I've earned that, and I've achieved that through one day of sobriety at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think for me, like what I noticed was the hardest thing I had to do. You guys are talking about, that orchestrated stress. The hardest thing that I had to do at first in recovery was get 1 day of sobriety. Mm-hmm. Maybe the hardest thing I had to do was to make that actual decision.
Yeah.
That I was going to do it this time. And like you, I had a couple of instances until I was finally like just humbled enough and had my ass kicked enough that it was like, now is the time, right?
And I think a lot of it, for me, in my experience, even in working with others, is this state of humility where you're kind of beaten down. You're like, all right, what next, right? Because so many times when I tried to get sober in the past, I still wanted to do it my own way. So
Right.
I'd listen to a sponsor, listen to the therapist or the counselor, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do this, but not this because I don't want to do that. This time, like, I was so ready, like I said at that time, like, I'm like, what am I going to do to get sober? I'm going to listen to people that know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.